지금 우리는 성경에서 말하는
Currently, we are sharing what the gospel of the Bible is. Many people think that they have heard the gospel and they know it already, but we need to give more thoughts to this issue.
생각을 해볼 필요가 있습니다.
It's because there's nothing more important than the gospel. We can receive salvation only through the gospel. Gospel is the basis for our salvation. Our eternity and souls depends on it. If that's the case, how much do we need to ponder upon the gospel? And we really need to contemplate on this. This is not just a simple issue we can take lightly. We can confirm through the Bible, especially the book of Acts, that the early church members did not stop teaching and proclaiming that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. This shows how important it is to know and understand the gospel that Jesus is the Christ. So in order for us to understand that Jesus is the Christ, let's explore the word Christ and its meaning. The Christ is the one sent to this earth to solve the fatal problems of mankind, which cannot be solved by our own efforts. If that's the case, we need to understand what is the problems of mankind, how severe it was that the Christ had to come. Personally, I see that this understanding also falls in the realm of revelation. To apprehend the problems of mankind, then we need to see what the original state of mankind was. In the previous videos, I explained what it means to be created in the image of God and how all problems came to mankind after breaking the covenant. We were able to see how important the covenant was and how grave it is to disobey it. Let's take a look at how the covenant got broken through this video. In Genesis chapter 3, the whole process is described in detail. According to Genesis chapter 1, 26 and 27, and Genesis chapter 2, 7, mankind was created in the image of God and was a living being. And God allowed a covenant to man as a promise and as a blessing. Throughout the whole chapter of Genesis chapter 3, you may find how mankind failed to show obedience to God in detail. You can see the list of problems through the chapter. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 8, all of a sudden, Adam and Eve hid themselves from God, hiding among trees in the garden. In Genesis chapter 3:10, Adam said, I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. In Genesis chapter 3:12, he said, the woman you put here with me, she gave me fruit from the tree, so I ate it. He not only made excuses, but also shifted responsibility on the woman and thus even blamed God for giving him the woman. That was happening. In Genesis chapter 3:13, the woman also tried to shift blame on the serpent, saying, the serpent deceived me and I ate. These strange things are happening in these verses. And finally, starting from Genesis chapter 3, 16 to 24, God cursed the mankind. Why all of a sudden did this situation arise? You may find the reason in the early part of the Genesis chapter 3. As you know, when you open Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 brings up the serpent. Verse 1, it says, the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God has made. God said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? The serpent appeared in the scene. Then who is this serpent? In Revelation 12, verse 9, the great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. The serpent, the ancient serpent, is certainly the devil or Satan. We don't know in what shape it appeared, but the Bible clearly tells us that the ancient serpent is Satan. And it's clearly stated in the Bible. Strange problems occurred and the situation started to go wrong. And we can see that the beginning of all these problems was the ancient serpent in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. In Genesis chapter 3, 6, when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. In other words, mankind sinned. They committed sin, being deceived by Satan.
죄를 범하는 일이 벌어져.
When we look at Genesis chapter 3, verse 23 and 24, so the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of the Eden Shebarim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. From the Bible verses we just read previously, we were able to sense the gap between God and mankind. The man hid from God and was afraid of God. After the series of these situations, eventually God expelled them out of the garden. The separation between God and man occurred. Mankind left God and God abandoned mankind. Through the ancient serpent in the Genesis chapter 3 verse 1, the man committed sin, and in Genesis chapter 3 verse 6, and as a result, they were separated and disconnected from God. Hence, all kinds of problems came to mankind as appeared in Genesis chapter 3, 16 through 24. If you contemplate just a little bit, you will notice easily all sufferings, including family problems, diseases, environmental problems, deaths, and after death problems are well listed from Genesis chapter 3, verse 16 through 24. It is no exaggeration to say that all problems came because mankind was separated from God, since they were deceived by Satan and committed sin. In a sense, all problems came because the man broke the covenant. In other sense, we can understand that all problems came because we fell to Satan's deception and committed sin, and thus we left God. This is the beginning of all problems. Genesis chapter 3:15 presented the solution to all the problems from the very beginning. Genesis chapter 3:15 says, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." The offspring of woman would come and solve the fundamental parts of the problems. It was already promised in Genesis chapter 3:15. Mankind suffers from countless problems. However, Genesis chapter 3 discloses the origin of all the problems. The origin of fundamental problems of mankind is this: we are separated from God because of our sin and Satan. Through the next video, I will shed the light on the current state of mankind, problems we face due to the fundamental problems that I shared today. Thank you.